we have on my first interviewee for Run to the Hills podcast is Jeanette Cross, who attempted the Centurion North Downs Way 100 at the weekend. She's going to tell us how it went, her training into the event. I'm going to ask her lots of little tidbits of how Centurion coped with the checkpoints, all sorts of things we're going to try and glean from her. She's going to tell us her story, and hopefully we're going to get a good insight of what it was like on the hottest weekend ever in the world on the North Downs Way. So hi Jeanette, thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks for being my first Zoom meeting set up.
I'm glad we managed to get online.
We did it. So I should just say as well, right from the beginning, Jeanette, you're one of my coaching clients.
I am.
We've been working together forever. Not quite a long time now, haven't we?
Yeah.
I don't like really using the word client because you're much more than that. You're a good buddy now, and you keep me laughing. And so I thought it would be quite good to chat to you because obviously I've been with you, we've been together for a while, but also we worked together through lockdown and all the sorts of way you coped with that and what you did. And I thought people would like to hear about that and how you approached North Downs Way and how it went for you. So firstly, can you tell people just a little bit of your running background and then how it went on the weekend, and I'll sort of intersperse with some questions as we sort of go along.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. I ran a little bit at school. I did cross country at school and loved it. Anything to get muddy and dirty. And then at about, I don't know, age 15, I discovered boys, and running kind of went out the window for a very long time. And then probably at around, in fact, exactly around 40, I hit 40 and I thought, I need to stop getting old. How can I stop getting old? And decided that running was the way to do it. So my partner at the time suggested that we, with our son, do the Sport Relief Mile.
I love that. Yeah.
So we started with that. It was one where they gave you a sock. Gave you a red sock when you registered for it, and you got the other sock at the end of the mile. So basically, run a mile for a sock.
With one sock.
I don't think you had to necessarily wear the sock, although a lot of people did.
Oh, that would have confused me.
But you got the sock at the end. So yeah, so the first thing I did was run a mile for a sock, and then thought, well, if I can run 1 mile, and I can run 26, and did that classic thing of entering the London Marathon the following year.
Yeah.
But only recently, well, relatively recently, discovered ultras. Mm-hmm. Kind of accidentally, because I swore I'd never run further than a marathon, but I did in 2014, and haven't looked back.
You have quite a close relationship with the North Downs Way.
I do.
You're
yes.
like queen of the North Downs Way, aren't you?
I like to
North
think
Downs
of myself.
A couple of times before.
Yeah, I did. I first did North Downs Way 100 in 2016. Had an absolute blast. Really, really loved it. It was, yeah, by far my favorite experience, and the one I think that I was proudest of.
Yeah.
I ran it the following year. Didn't go quite so well. Just like, I don't want to go into too much detail as this is going out publicly, but yeah, a lot of like issues at both ends, probably from around Box Hill.
Yeah.
Onwards.
Yeah.
And that kind of finished my race at Detling. So yeah, going back this year was a little bit of like unfinished business.
It interests me that you go back 3 times to the same race, because that's my idea of a nightmare, is to revisit the scene of the crime, especially for a 100-miler.
I think with the North Downs Way, I think with different races, it's different things. So with South Downs Way 100, I went back a second time because I wanted to go faster.
Yeah.
And I think this time with North Downs, it was because I'd stopped at Detling in 2017, when I probably shouldn't. I could have walked it out. I could have walked it out. And I knew that. So that was about going back to finish the job.
Yeah, I love that.
Didn't quite go to plan, but that was the plan at the start.
Okay. And then between then and now, what have you done between that DNF at Detling and then up to now?
Oh, it's been, relatively speaking, race-wise, it's been quite quiet. Because I had a hip issue, which you'll be overjoyed to know I had nothing. I know this is like going off on a tangent, but during the race, no niggles, nothing, no hip, no back, no hamstring, nothing. Um, yeah, so between then and then, I did a Centurion Chiltern Wonderland 50. That's one where I then fell and broke my wrist, which is always a good thing. So I remember texting you from the I'm in A&E, but I finished. Um, so it's all good. And then I did the Atlantic Coast Challenge, which was the 3-day one along the Southwest Coast Path, which I loved. I really liked that 3-day stage racing thing. And not much of anything else really, just the odd trail marathon. So it's been pretty quiet. It was going to be a big year of Centurion races this year, and so North Downs Way 100 was the first one for ages.
Yeah. So let's go back a few months to lockdown. That happened, and you had North Downs Way 100 on the horizon. Did you carry on working during lockdown?
Yes, I'm very lucky in that I work for a tech company, so I'm able to work from home really, really easily. And I have to admit, it was weird at first, but I love working from home. The extra time that I get has been, so it actually made it easier for me to get training in.
I think every runner has said, if I could work from home, one, I can fit my training in. I don't take 2-hour lunch breaks. I can get my training done. In most people running in the morning, I don't have the commute. I'm probably way more productive then because you've done your run and you're not trying to fit it all in.
Yeah.
And you have access to the kettle and the snacks.
Exactly, which is the most important thing. The most important thing. And I'm going to be working from home until July next year. So.
Oh, wow, that's good. And how did training look for you during lockdown?
It wasn't at the start because you were only supposed to go out once a day, and stayed and not travel anywhere, because I live in southeast London, which is it's not a bad area of anywhere really. It's green. It's nice enough to run, but it's not the countryside. It's not the downs. So I wasn't able to get out to trail run. So I was on road, and I worked out this little route of back streets, so you're trying to socially distance at the same time, and so I was trying to look for roads that weren't too busy with cars and weren't too busy with people. So I've got this route that looks a little bit like a radiator grill when you see the tracing on Strava, and I ran the same route repeatedly. Whatever it was you asked me to do, whether it was an easy run or whether it was intervals or tempo or whatever, it tended to be on that same route unless you had me looking for hills. I'm lucky that I have hills as well.
You are lucky, yeah. You're lucky that you've got access to some short, sharp, good ones. And then you got involved in the Centurion virtual challenges.
Yes.
What distance did you do for the one love?
For One Love, I did. There was only one thing that I could do, which was the 100-mile training week one. I did think about a couple of the others, like 50, which I would have wanted to do in one go, and I just thought the logistics of it were, especially during lockdown, weren't great. So I went for the 100-mile training week. I've never gone above, I don't know, about 60 miles in a week before, so that was quite a push for me. And fitting it around work. So being able to run, again, working from home, being able to run like 2-3 times a day made a big difference.
Yeah. And did you find that you actually could run further in the week than you thought you could?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I was surprised, that I could fit it in time-wise, but also that my body was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, you want to go out again? There was a sort of point in the middle of the week where it felt a little bit like going out just to get the miles in, and you just thought, oh, do I really want to run?
Yeah. And then, okay, so we did that week, and then it suddenly became more viable that the North Downs Way 100 was going to happen. And I was messaging you going, yeah, James is like really confident that he can do this and this is going to happen. But we only had a few weeks then to sort of get your head around the fact it was going to happen, to pop in a longer run to give you a bit of confidence that you could still do that, to get out on the North Downs Way. So what was your sort of thinking going into the event? Were you thinking, yeah, I'm ready for this? Were you thinking, I'm not so sure? What was kind of your headspace like?
I surprised myself by being more confident that I was ready than I thought I would be. Because at first there was that kind of like, 4 weeks, really? Really? And then I just thought, because I had been feeling stronger, for sure, both in mind and in body. And because I've done the distance before, I think that made a big difference. And I went in with the mindset of, let's try this, because what I've enjoyed about working with you is not doing the same kind of mileage that I was when I was running on my own without being coached. I was packing the miles in, but what I'm getting from working with you is that extra speed work and fewer miles and getting the same kind of results. So joy all round. But yeah, there was that. I hadn't been out for a proper long day for a while, and that was, it was a little niggle, I'd say, in the back of my mind. Maybe
majority of the field felt like that you didn't have that backup of 3 or 4 long days going into the 100, and you'd sort of had that tired feeling as well. And for me, getting your head into that tired feeling, I know when I've not raced, because I don't race in the winter really, when I go back to having to put my head into that tired place and carry on, it takes me a while to battle that demon that it's okay. Because you start to panic and you're like 10-15 miles and I feel tired. So let's get you to the start line.
Okay.
Dying to know. So let's get you to the start of the North Downs Way. What time did you start? Talk us through how you started, and then just talk us through your race, and I'll try not to interrupt.
Okay. Oh no, feel free to interrupt. So the aim was to start. So there was a staggered start over 2 hours between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. with little half-hour windows depending on what you kind of expected your finish time to be, so that the field would be spread out. So I aimed to start at about 5:30. I think I probably actually started a little bit later than that, maybe 10 minutes later than that. Due to faffing around with my drop bags. So nothing new there. You get your temperature checked at the start with one of those little gun temperature things. I've never seen one of those before, but when they hold it to your head, maybe it was just me, but it was like they hold it to your head like that. I immediately said to Russ, I said, I'm not sure I like this. And he said, it's not a real gun. I said, but I know, but...
Because a little bit of you like, please let me have a temperature.
No, actually, no, a little bit of me was like, before the race, because I am a woman of a certain age, I'm 54, so hot flushes are a thing, a big thing. And I was thinking, what happens if I have a hot flush at the start of the race and they take my temperature and they go, I'm sorry, love, no. And I'd be like, can I just go back to the queue? Give me 2 minutes. I promise you, I'm going to be normal. Menopause, please. So yeah, there was. So I, rather than not wanting a temperature, I was just like, please, stay cool. Yeah, stay cool, Jeanette. But that was all good. So I actually quite liked that staggered start. I mean, there's something
with people. Or were you literally just by yourself?
I walked to the start line from the sports hall with another runner, and Stuart was taking photos there's like a big sculpture thing at the start. So there were a few people about, and so they were starting people off at about, 30-second intervals, something like that. So there was a chap in front of me and then a chap behind me. So you start on your own. And either somebody will catch up with you or pass you, or you catch somebody and pass them. But there was something really, it didn't feel like a race start where you didn't have that like whoosh where everybody kind of goes off and it's exciting and everybody's talking and you're queuing for the gates and there's a lot of like excited, nervous chatter. But what it still felt like a race because you knew you were going over a start line and it beat. But there was this, I don't know, there was this peace about it as well. So you got to enjoy that sunrise, and you still had I guess the sociability as well, because you were still close enough to people to kind of run along and have a little bit of a chat at a 2-meter distance.
I think a lot of people will like that, because I know a lot of people hate the first part of an ultra where everybody runs off like it's a 10K.
Yeah.
And I don't mean, but I think a lot of women really hate that, because it tends to be the guys that then sprint off, and then we're sort of caught up in it slightly.
Yeah.
And it takes about 10 miles for people to sort of start coming back to you, and sort of all that testosterone to disappear. So in some ways it suits us a bit better in that we can totally run our own race and keep that without that adrenaline spike at the beginning.
Yeah, I genuinely really liked it, and I think that what you then got was that feeling that you get after the race kind of spreads out a little bit. Yeah. So you still had that social part of it, and that sort of, you know, that there's a reassurance, especially later on in the race, where you can see other people. Yeah, you're going the right way, or it's in the dark. But you still got that feeling when you got to the aid stations and everything. Everything else felt like a Centurion race. Everything else, it was
quite a long way to that first checkpoint, which we'd sort of discussed.
Yes.
So tell me about the sort of checkpoint etiquette, how that went for you.
You can't fault it. It was about as smooth as it was possible to be. You came to the checkpoint, you went through the little timer funnel, and then you were stood in a socially distanced queue where you could then sanitize your hands before you went in. And then there were 3 tables, sometimes 2, but mostly 3 tables set up, all of which had exactly the same on them. So they all had water and Tailwind and Coke or Pepsi, and then little packets of food, variety of food. So you waited until a table became free, went and had to fill up your own bottles. It was like, the first thing I learned at Newlands Corner was take the lids off your bottles before you sanitize your hands, because your hands are really slippy, so it's hard. And then also your bottle tops will taste of hand sanitizer.
Oh, excellent tip. Absolutely, that could push you. Yeah. Go out. You take a big
get those lids off those bottles before you touch the hand sanitizer. But then you fill up, and you've still got that chat with the volunteers. I know a lot of the volunteers said that they were desperate to kind of get in and help like they usually do, or give people a hug or a high five. But you still felt that same support. And then you sanitize your hands on the way out, and away you go.
Okay. So talk me now through your sort of race, how it panned out, what happened. The biggest factor was the heat.
Yes, it was very, very hot, and it was warm. It was warm when I set off, but it was cloudy, which was lovely. So it was still warm, and it felt humid, and it felt muggy, but you weren't in direct sun. And as you know, I was under strict instructions to drink like it was going out of fashion, and to make sure I downed an extra bottle at each of the aid stations. And then also the aim was to eat every 30 minutes, which for the first time ever, I actually managed. It wasn't easy. Yeah. The heat really makes you feel like eating and drinking is difficult, but literally every 30 minutes, I got something into my stomach, and I drank and drank and drank. I'd say I was nipping behind a tree once an hour. I was proud, and I was also looking at my watch every time I did, so that I knew that a marshal at the next station would go, "Are you drinking enough? When did you last nip behind a tree?" Yeah. And I'd be able to tell them, 35 minutes ago. Exactly. So that part I felt really good about. Then I sort of bimbled along quite happily. We got to Box Hill. There was a change to the route, so you didn't go all the way up the steps. Yeah. There was a little diversion, which was it was so well marshaled and well marked. And it was a nice little diversion, but I like the Box Hill steps because that's kind of where I feel strongest, where I'm just like, I hike up the steps and then there's a lovely like undulating runnable bit along the top, which you missed out, and it was exchanged for this kind of long drag where you could see people, this is great, I can hike up this, and I was like, oh, I want to be moving a little bit more quickly.
A bit of a grinder rather than
bit of a grind.
You can power up those steps and feel you get up them reasonably quickly, don't you?
Yeah, and get it out of the way. And that was also the point where the sun decided to come out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that stretch to Ryegate I always really enjoy anyway. I feel like it's my little bit of the North Downs. It's not, it belongs to everybody. But it's mine. So that's where I feel comfortable, I guess. So then was Ryegate, and there's like a little kiosk at Ryegate that has loos in it, so I was able to kind of go in there and like splash myself with cold water as well, which I think that was the thing, is that I didn't have, because I don't have crew. I didn't have anyone like plying me with ice or anything to keep my body temperature down, so I could feel that I was getting hot.
Facebook, that the people that managed to keep going, they would definitely had crew giving them ice and ice lollies, and cooling them down, and cold drinks and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that makes a massive difference, and you could see there were a lot more crew out there than like for a regular Centurion race. I think a lot of people had chosen to have crew, or at least that's what it felt like. Or maybe it was just I was jealous because everybody else had somebody with a massive ice box. So I bimbled along quite happily, and then I think the first time I thought, oh, this doesn't feel great, was at Caterham, which is around mile 38, and the checkpoint is on the Caterham viewpoint, which is just in direct sun. How those volunteers stood out there in those masks all day, just kudos to every volunteer at that race, because I mean, even at the best of times, it's a tough job, and they do it for the love, So standing in the queue there were a couple of people in front of me in the queue, and I just thought I need to sit, otherwise I'm gonna pass out. I'm gonna keel over.
Is that because you were hot? Just so hot?
I think it was just the heat. I was so hot, and I was standing in the direct sun, and I thought, so I was sort of bent over trying to get my head low and stay in the queue, because I obviously wanted to fill my water bottles, but I just thought, no, this isn't working. So I sat on a chair under a tree, and dealt with a blister. First, I've never had a blister that early in a race before, and I only usually get like the odd toe blister. So I dealt with that, and then went and stood back in the queue. Still felt a bit woozy, but just needed the water. So I spent a little bit of time at Caterham. Normally with a checkpoint, I'm in, I'm out. I never sit, no matter how late in the race. I'm gone. But I really needed the time, so I took the time to make sure I was taking on more fluid and that I felt better. Not sure how long I was there, but I set off feeling much better. Headed towards Botley. You go across these chalk fields that are so white that the sun is reflected back at you. And it's just like, could this be any hotter? I'm sure it could.
Hell right now.
This is hell. Bad water, schmad water. Come on. This is not
David Goggins. I'm chalk field.
Oh Lord. But I knew Botley was coming up, so I knew there was another aid station. And I didn't feel great in the queue, although that was in the shade, but I was just so hot. So again, I took a little bit more time, and I sat down and I drank a lot, and managed to eat, kept eating. And that's when I became aware that people around me, people that I was, because you get to know the same kind of, the same people, or at least you get to know the names of people, and you think, okay, this particular person is my nemesis. They're so, we're always kind of more or less kind of together, and people are talking about dropping, and you think, but we're not even halfway, and then that's when you start to think, oh, actually everybody's really struggling with this heat. And leaving Botley and getting to Knockholt, I knew there were some exposed bits, but I actually felt okay. Knockholt was great. It was the first indoor aid station. So I purchased this absolutely disgusting leopard skin mask from Superdrug because I wanted something that we could like just tuck in my race vest. That might cheer me up a bit, but I could quite happily throw away afterwards. It was really horrible. It smelled really bad.
Maybe it wasn't the mask that smelled, Jeanette.
I think it was me. later on, I had to put it back on, and it was like, oh yeah, I think all of me smells this bad. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't the mask. It was me. Again, it was super well organized, and you could see that they were counting how many people were indoors, and they had some chairs out in the shade at the back. And I took a bit of time to get myself sorted, picked up my iPod for the night, and also charged my watch. Got my watch I started it charging on my wrist. I didn't wait while it charged because that would have been really silly. Nipped to loo, and then I was off again, and I'm not gonna lie, I left Knockholt feeling like $1 million.
Yeah,
I felt so good. I thought, right, this is it, game on. It's starting to get cooler, clouds are back.
And I was tracking you, and I saw you got there, and I was like, that is such a great time. She's got there, she's controlled, she's obviously taken it easy, she's eating, she's drinking, and I sort of went to bed then, sorry. Okay, well,
I didn't expect you to stay up all night, just so you're clear.
Yeah, but I always think, I don't tell you I'm going to bed. My clients.
No, that's true. That is true.
I'll check in. If I wake up in the night, I'll check in. But I was like, well, I did think she set herself up then for a great night. But then things must have gone a little bit wrong after you left there. Perhaps
they did.
The heat as well took a lot more out of you than you thought.
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, and I had, because I was being good about trying not to look at time compared to 2016 when I did it in 23 and a half hours, and I thought I'm not looking, but I looked at Box Hill and I thought, oh, actually you're only 20 minutes behind where you were last time. That's good. By the time I got to Knockholt, I was like 2.5 hours slower, but I was still thinking this is all fine. It's getting cooler. I was looking forward to the night. I was enjoying it, and I hadn't enjoyed all of it thus far, because you never do you? Because the heat I'd really struggled with. I left Knockholt, walked up that slope out of Knockholt feeling really good, and I think I'm going to say it was probably three miles or so. I think I got to Otford and was starting to think, oh, actually I'm not feeling as good as I thought I did, but it's just a low patch. It's just a low patch. And there was a crew point, I think, at Otford, because a very nice man gave me a Calippo, for which I will love him forever. It was his last one too, so I was lucky that I'd overtaken a guy. That was the only thought that was in my head when he gave me, he held up the box of Calippos and he went, "It's my last one." And I was thinking, so pleased I went past the guy with the sticks, because now I got the Calippo to eat up. There's a very steep hill out of Otford, so that was really, really nice. Yeah. It was nice to have something really cold. And then it started to fall apart a little bit, and just in terms of I knew I wasn't moving quite as well as I'd like to have been. I was still running, so I was doing little jogs, hiking up the hills, and then I just thought there came a point I'd hiked up a hill, and I thought, right, time to start running again now, Jeanette. No naughty walking, come on. And it just wasn't there, and I thought, right, okay, hike to this tree and then run, and then I just thought, right, okay, I'm gonna hike, and then I started doing the maths in my head. It's like, you can walk this, you can walk it out, power it through, and then maybe a little bit later you'll feel a little bit better. So I did literally walk to Rootham, But I was so zen about the whole thing. It was just like, yeah, just walk until either somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, sorry, Jeanette, time's up, or walk until you finish. And that's how I was at Rootham, which is when you must have woken up in the night because you messaged me. There was I thinking you were staying up. But no, Eddie doesn't care. Eddie doesn't care. She's in bed. And so I was sat just. They had little bags of ice at Rootham, which was quite nice. And so I was just sat getting myself sorted out, and that's when I sort of checked my phone and messaged you back and said how I was feeling. And that's when you said it's not over till the fat lady sings. And I was like, right, okay, yeah, it's not over till the fat lady sings. And I genuinely, my mindset was so like, yeah, just keep moving, just keep moving. It's grand. And I felt like I could hike through the night, put my head torch on, and I set off. And I'd not gone far. After Rootham, there's a really weird bit where you go in and out of sort of sheep fields on the side of a hill. And I thought, my feet don't feel great. I'm starting to feel like I've got blisters. And I thought, I'd never get blisters on my heel, on the base of my feet, and they just felt really hot and they were really sore. And I just thought, right, okay, it's 5.5 to Holly Hill. I'll sort them out then. Then I thought I'd better sort them out sooner. And I thought, well, I get to Trosley, is it Trosley? In my head, I call it Trotsky Country Park, which I know is not what it's called. But let's go with Trotsky Country Park. I thought I'll get there, and I know there's a bench. I'll be able to sit on the bench, and I'll sort out my feet. Because if I don't sort them out, this is not going to end well. And I got to the country park, and there's this long stretch where if you haven't recce'd it, you think you must have gone wrong because you're just going in a straight line for such a long time. And by that point, it was quite quiet. There weren't many other runners about. And then, I don't know, I just got the fear of sitting on a bench in the middle of nowhere in the dark on my own.
In 100, you couldn't care, and you find yourself sitting in a bench in the middle of Reading with a few.
Exactly, but it was like, yeah, but now it was like, I was just like, oh, yeah, I'm not sure. So I thought, I'll get to Holly Hill. I'll sort, and I think that was the mistake I made, was not sitting on that bench in Trotsky Country Park fixing my blisters, because by the time I got to Holly Hill, they were a mess. Yeah. They were a mess. Yeah. And I missed out the bit where I saw a monk. This wasn't hallucination. Just, we could, this, it was in daylight, and I know other people saw him because there were pictures on Facebook afterwards, but there was a monk lying in the woods, in the trees, on his phone, on his smartphone.
I'm sure it was a monk.
Well, he was certainly dressed as a monk. Let's put it that way. Well, I don't know. He and his, I didn't see his chum, but the pictures on Facebook afterwards saw there was another person with him, but there was a monk laying in the trees on his iPhone. There was also a 4x4 driving up like pedestrian steps into Trotsky Country Park at about 11 o'clock at night.
People out in a 4x4 on a trail in the middle of the night.
Well, what are you doing? And then there was.
We don't need to go into the.
Well, we don't need. No, we should. You have to be putting a warning out before the podcast. Yeah, we don't go there.
So you got to Holly Hill.
I got to Holly Hill, and I kind of just, by that point I was like, oh, okay, I'm not sure now that this is going to happen. I'm going to finish, but let's see. So when I got there, he was such a lovely marshal. He was your typical marshal. He was sort of, how are you feeling? And I said, I'm not sure I'm necessarily going to leave this aid station, but I'm going to have a cup of tea and a packet of smoky bacon crisps, and then we'll see. And so I felt all right after a cup of tea. Mentally, I was on fire. I was feeling really good, but then I had to again nip behind a tree and trying to walk on my poor feet was just like, nah, this is not happening. And I think that's where, and then when somebody said it's 10.6 miles to the next aid station and I'm trying to hobble, and I was just like, right, I think, yeah, that's it. My head had gone as well.
Yeah.
So it's just like, so I did try another cup of tea and another packet of smoky bacon crisps, but it was like, yeah, I'm just gonna.
If the smoky bacon isn't doing it,
I wasn't doing it.
I think as well is that you suffered a lot more during the day. You're a very chipper and positive person, and
Yeah.
really, you've made it sound like you trotted through that day relatively quickly, but you suffered deeply, as did the whole field during.
Yeah.
Yourself cool. Your body had to work a lot harder in that first 50 miles than we ever want it to work, and you're running much slower because of that. So you're 2 hours, 3 hours behind. So you're that much more time on your feet. But then when it comes to the bit of 100, when you're having to suffer and you start asking yourself the questions, actually your body's like, but why? I've done that now. I've done the hurty bit, and now you want me to go and do the again? Oh no. So I mean, all that is compounded, and then your blisters from sweat in your soles.
Yeah.
The fact your feet would have swollen more than they normally do, causing the blisters, and the fact that then your body is exhausted, but your brain as well, which has had to override those signals all day from your body going, I'm so hot, why are you not lie down on beach? Why do you keep running? And you might not have been battling that sort of like in your conscious, but your body has. And then when it comes to other things, it's just like, no. So yeah. I think that's a big loss people would have then.
I think so. And I think that, and it's something that I've heard other people say since the race as well, is that at, say, Caterham, so at like 38 miles, 38 is usually where I'm like getting...
Yeah, you're like, right, okay. Now
I'm on fire. I felt like I was literally on fire. You having the feelings that you normally have at, say, I don't know, 82 miles, your brain and your body at 38 was feeling like it was supposed to at 32. And I think that it messed with me quite a lot.
Having that argument that you can't cope with for hours and hours and hours already.
Yeah.
So you made the decision that you're going to stop there, and that was the end of your day, which a DNF is a really hard thing to do, and it's often the bravest thing to, rather than struggle on and destroy yourself. But then the consequences that you then spend the rest of the time you get home. What if, should I, could I? So how are you feeling now? It's Monday morning. How's the body feeling? How's the mind feeling about that decision?
I think, because right back when we were talking earlier, and I said that going back to North Downs Way 100 this year was my way of like dealing with the fact that I felt like I'd quit in 2017 at Detling when I really didn't need to. Whereas this time, I mean, even like at the time in 2017, after I'd handed my number over, I was like, oh no, really, you shouldn't have done that. This time, I know that it was the right decision completely. So I've not had any of those like, oh, what if I'd kept going? What if I'd, nothing. I've had none of that because I'm just totally zen about it, which is good, because I'd hate to have kind of like gotten home and then gone, oh man, you could have just kept going.
You did everything right. You trained through lockdown. You did everything you could during lockdown to keep yourself fit and healthy and strong, as well as coping with everything going on around you. You approached the race really well. You had a good taper. You felt good. You approached the heat really well. You ate and you drank and you paced it really well. And there was nothing you can do that God decided to send the holy hell fire down on the North Downs Way on that weekend, and it just wasn't your day. you did everything that you could that it says on the tin to cope with it, and at the end of the day, it, you could have hobbled around if you wanted to for the next 10 miles on your blistered feet. But who knows? You have had injury. You have had hip injury before, so there's nothing to be gained if you decide to finish. Which I'm glad that you did, and you didn't then go on and do any more damage to yourself, and you've come away with hopefully with like an experience. And though it wasn't a finish line experience, it was really still, I think, an amazing thing that you did. And you were running along there, you put yourself on the start line, which all the people that put themselves on the start line, so I certainly wouldn't have felt ready to race mentally, I think, as much as physically. I thought that was really brave of you to go, and then to deal with the day that came at you as well, to everybody, was really courageous. And I think you go back out and do your next ultra in a balmy 18 degrees, you're going to be like, woohoo! But you've also seen how much you can eat and drink.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. The real learn from me on this was actually, Jeanette, you can eat every 30 minutes. It's not always going to be easy, but I think, but I can eat a little mini malt loaf. I can eat a bit of banana. I can stuff another gel down me. It was, I think that was one of the biggest, and I can drink more. And what happens if I do? Because, that the feet are the feet, and the heat was the heat, and that's a great little poem.
You did what you could, but
that's it. I controlled the controllables, and accepted how things were, and just I felt. I'm not going to say I enjoyed every second, because I didn't, but you don't with an ultra. That's kind of the point, really. But I there were times where I was running, or later on walking, where I was just like, there's nowhere else I would rather be than in Trotsky Country Park in the middle of the night with my little head torch on, striding through the night.
I love that you've come out with a positive.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, without. So what's next?
What's next? Well, what's next, dear Eddie? So I've got the rescheduled South Downs Way 50 and North Downs Way 50. It's funny, because I was thinking on the North Downs Way 100, there were certain stretches, including that chalky bad water hell stretch, where I was thinking, actually, Jeanette, I think you'd rather it was like this than how it's going to be in November, because this is not going to be. That's when you get, because it gets so muddy on the North Downs Way, and you get those.
I'm sorry, Goggins, that I slated you because.
Yeah, like the mud will be quite something. But I'm looking forward to that. My next sort of big thing that's in my head is Arc 50. So the Arc of Attrition 50 in end of January, start of February, which in my head I call Baby Arc, and then I have that like Baby Shark song in my head. It's like Baby Arc. You'll have that. You'll have that in your head now, all through that race.
About that route, from what I've heard.
Yeah, I love the Southwest Coastal Path. If I could go and live in Cornwall for the rest of my life, I would. And yeah, it's a toughie, and it's a toughie at a time of year when it's the weather's going to go bad.
The race you've just done.
Oh, completely.
But another great challenge, and another exciting thing to work towards. And now you just got to get those blisters. Did you pop the blisters?
I didn't. I soaked my feet in salty water, which is something that one of the paramedics, I had a couple of small toe blisters at the Atlantic Coast Challenge, and she said, you go away and soak your feet in salty water, and you're at this holiday camp thinking, where am I going to get like a mass of salt from? So I got lots of little packet salts from the cafe. Just like, you could see people who'd all obviously spoken to the same paramedic as me, just like just gonna take this salt. So I did that, and I don't have to go anywhere today. So I'm going to soak them again, and I'll leave them. And then if they're still like, yeah, I'm not going to show you, but they're not pretty. They're still pretty. Like I said, I've not had blisters like this before. They're quite something. But as there's only, me and the cat, and I don't have to go out and get anything, I think I'm fine hobbling around with them for now. But yeah, need to sort those out and make sure I don't get any more somehow. But yeah, so just ARC coming up, start of next year. I haven't got anything else down for 2021 yet. I'm waiting to see.
Let's wait and see what happens.
What happens?
What's thrown at us next?
Yes, well, what happens in the world, and then maybe you can come up with some evil genius idea, and it's like, I've just seen this, Jeanette. Why don't you do this?
I love it. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks so much for chatting and sharing your story with us. And we look forward to seeing how you go at North Downs Way and South Downs Way 50. But we'll let you have a couple of weeks off. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I'll be good. I promise. 2 weeks of like feet up.
Feet up, resting, being a normal person, wearing jeans.
Yes.
Ooh, no.
Oh, no. I was going to say, I don't think I've been out of shorts since March. It's that whole all my work meetings, they only see me from the top upwards. So, and they always say, Jeanette, have you just been for a run, or are you just about to go for a run? Because that's it. I
noticed that my face went less red throughout because I literally I did a tempo run, had a shower, and then as I dialed into the Zoom, I was like, oh my God, my face is so red still because I'm such a red-faced runner. Oh, thank you so much for that. I loved it. I was in story.
It's it's one of those things where I did promise some, because I sent you my blog.
I loved your blog.
I don't blog on that. I haven't blogged on that site. I don't think I've blogged on that site since North Downs Way 100 2017, where I dropped.
Yeah.
But I blog on Fetch Everyone, which is where I log all my training and everything. I blog on there much more regularly about all sorts of bizarre things, not just running.
I said that to you before we started chit-chatting, to say, we'll put a link.
Yeah, you can put a link, and I will blog this one, and people go, oh, please blog.
Well, you can just put a link to the podcast.
Oh yes. Oh well, I'm certainly going to be putting a link to the podcast anyway, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? But yeah, so no, I'm so excited for you doing this as well, doing this podcast. How exciting!
I think I've had anxiety about it quite a lot.
No, and I can understand that. That's natural, but I think you're a natural for this.
We go on, do it, because I'm like, I can't do anything else in my life, Bryn. I cannot fit anything else in. And he's like, no, go on, do it, because I love chatting to people, and I'm keen to get out different stories, because I listen. We listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's quite samey. And I listen to a lot of men interviewing other men, or women who are just, I'm like, you're just not living in the real world.
I think that's actually a really good point, and I hadn't really thought about it that much, but I listen to a heck of a lot. This morning I was listening to Trail Runner Nation, because I quite like Trail Runner Nation, but they were talking to John Kelly, who I like and I find interesting. Or it is, generally speaking, men talking to men, or they're talking, and don't get me wrong, I love Courtney DeWalter so much, but they're talking to like Courtney or Magdalena Boulet, or Maggie Guttural, or they're talking to like super fast women, and you can find the odd one where they kind of talk to normal people, but I think there's a lot to be said for that. You say for some different stories, and I think especially when you're looking to get sort of like more women into ultra running, and the amount of people at work that will say to me, oh, I don't know how you can do it, what you're going to do at the weekend, and I say to them, I said, look, especially as a woman, and especially as an older woman, your body is physiologically more, I don't know, more able just to endure. So the amount of times where people have just like set off at a real lick, men have set off at a real lick, and you just go, right, okay, well, either you're, and I do it in a race anyway, where when women go past me, I just go, right, okay, either you're fitter than I am and you're just going to have a hell of a day, or I'm going to see you later.
I do exactly the same. I'm like,
going
faster than me.
Yeah.
Or see you later. I'm gonna see you later.
Yeah.
Actually, majority of the time they're gonna see you later.
And it's funny because a lot of the time, not necessarily with the men, but a lot of the time you can tell as they go by you. You just think, okay, right, see ya. I'm sorry, you're having a better day than me, or you're faster than me. But a lot of the time you go, yeah, I give you 20 miles, dude, and
running as well, as it takes 20 miles, because I always think like 20 miles, most people can run together for 20 miles, and a lot of men can run 20 miles a ton quicker than I can. Then it starts falling apart, and you have to just keep holding on while everybody else is falling apart. And we saw that at the weekend, that times were just not even, you don't even look at the times. It was just, all you had to do was hold your body and your brain together and get to the finish line. And it was just the people whose bodies enabled them to do that.
And when I'd handed my number in at Holly Hill, seeing there weren't, I think they said when I got there, I think they said they were waiting for 40 people. Also, it was really weird. That was the one weird thing, is everybody having different start times. So you'd be walking along with somebody. So I was walking up the hill into Botley Hill with a guy who was on his first 100, bless him. And he had been asking me about if I'd done it before and everything. And I said, yes. And he said something about sub 24. And I said, yeah, but I said, that's what I did last night. I said, it's not happening. And he kind of went, what, really? And I said, yeah, we're moving too slowly. And he said, but I thought if I got to Knockholt in like 11 and a half hours, that gives me like, X amount of time. And I didn't want to sort of like rain on his parade, but I was just like, and then I said, oh, but what time did you start? And he said, he told me what time. And I said, well, that's 20 minutes after I started. That 20 minutes could make the difference. Off you go. Because I thought, I don't want to put him in the mindset where he's like, he really, really wants 24 hours and he's not going to get it. But there's also that realistic, like, it's not a day for chasing times, and
that was a lot hard for people to get their heads around. That loads of people not raced for ages, really super fit. And, desperate to race hard and show how fit they were to the world.
Yes.
Getting to the start line, we're like, oh, I can't, and that's a massive disappointment. To then, okay, this is just going to be a struggle street, and I didn't want a struggle street of a race. I wanted to, I wanted to be out, freedom at last, and etc. So I think that's where a lot of people then came unstuck as well. But good learning, and I'm really happy that you haven't you've come away with it positivity and not injured
completely, and not with that feeling that, and I think that there's not a feeling with it. I've got an unfinished business with it now, whereas there was before, because I knew that I probably should have kept going last time.
Handled yourself on that shows how far you've come and how experienced you are and how comfortable you are in that sort of suffer in the pain cave. And that you can deal with everything that's thrown at you, and going to make you, I think it's going to be hard, because North Downs Way 50 and South Downs Way 50 in November are going to be so different to how you're used to them. So to approach them as like totally different courses. Lost you. I'm going to have to go, Jeanette, because I've got another call.
Okie dokie. Can't believe we talked for an hour.
No, but it's great. It's great. I feel like I know all about your race, and I'm happy to see you happy.